Over the weekend, me and 7 of my friends decided to go see a movie. Instead of going to see Deadpool and Wolverine like everyone else and their dogs, we watched the Borderlands movie. And we really should have gone to see, literally anything else currently playing because Borderlands was just awful. It was just absolutely awful. I honestly don't know where to start. This movie is a train wreck from start to finish. It just straight up fails as being a recognizable adaptation of Borderlands. It breaks the law of the games as quickly as it makes a Kevin Hart is short joke, which happens in under 5 minutes, if you're wondering. When I talked about the Fallout show earlier this year, I said that when making an adaptation, whether it be a video game or a book or whatever, the adaptation needs to find a way to appeal to the fans of the source material and to people who are unaware of it. If it can't do both, then it should probably pick the fans. Borderlands picked neither.
Would you look at that? A ladder type of...
Legend has it that there's this massive treasure hidden in some secret vault. God, I hate this planet.
I wouldn't recommend this movie to anyone. This movie might be worse than Madam Web. Like, Madam Web is at least so bad, it's kind of like interesting to try and unpack how broken that movie is. Borderlands is just bad. It sucks. The movie is just straight up disrespectful to anyone who loves the games and anyone not familiar with them. It is painfully generic and lifeless to the point that I feel like it damages the brand. On the off chance some poor soul decided to watch this movie because they saw the queue to Deadpool and Wolverine was like, oh no, I'll watch a different movie, and then watched Borderlands instead, I'm pretty sure they would have come out of Borderlands with less of an idea of what it was when they came into it. Actually, I'm pretty sure that Eli Roth has no idea what Borderlands is. Or if he does know what it is, then he didn't like it, because why else would you change so much for no reason? I'm not some Borderlands purist, and I welcome any changes from the source material if it works better for the story that they're trying to tell. But the movie kind of strips out any interesting elements to the characters or the story that the games had. Like Tiny Tina, for example. In the movie, she is a clone created by the head of Atlas using Iridian blood to open the vault. In the games, Tina and her parents were captured and sold by a psycho to be used in some kind of weapons test where Tina was able to escape, but her parents were killed, and that orphaned Tina, leaving her alone on Pandora. Now, Tina in the movies and the Tina in the games are very similar in the way that they're portrayed, but that's the problem. Pandora as a planet is a character in itself, and Tiny Tina's manic, violent nature is kind of a symptom of what Pandora is like and the effects of what happens to a child who grew up on this planet. In the movies, she's just kind of like that from the start, and there's no real reason for how Tiny Tina is. Now, excusing the fact that writing and portrayal is an important factor when getting a character like Tina right, because even when she is done right, like in the games, she can still be a very polarizing character. I know a lot of people don't like Tiny Tina, and that's fine. She's a bit in your face as a character.
Shut the hell up, Moxie! You don't understand my process? I take it back, girl. You know I love you.
But in the movies, she is just so much less interesting. The only thing I kind of liked, and that's a bit of a stretch there, was her relationship with Krieg. But that comes with some huge problems in itself, because Krieg has also been stripped of anything that made his character special. In the games, Krieg is a psycho that has some resemblance of his sanity left.
Hey, remember back when we were sane?
She can taste the bloody hatred!
Guess not.
Although nobody can really tell because his sane side is manifested as an inner voice. This becomes a problem when inner voices can't really be portrayed in a movie setting, unless you kind of use a voiceover, which I feel like there could have been room for that because Lilith was narrating the movie for the first third of it, and then she just kind of stopped. And maybe it could have been fun if the characters kind of took over that job as the movie came along. And then you could have actually seen that Krieg isn't just some psycho and maybe added some depth to him through that. Man, that was a real missed opportunity there. I only just thought of that. Yeah, so characters have to express what they're thinking with their acting. So Krieg in the movie becomes friends with Tina and acts as a sort of bodyguard and protector for her. And while fans of the game could probably infer that the same part of Krieg could still be in there and kind of guiding that part of him, anyone not aware of this character doesn't have that context, because all Krieg does in the movies is just act as the muscle, and then he just also says some insane shit sometimes. The movie also just does a terrible job of establishing what psychos even are in the first place. So any nuance or differences between Krieg and any of the other psychos in the movie are immediately lost. His character doesn't even have an arc in the movie. I mean, most of the characters don't anyway, but Krieg felt the most like a waste of screen time in the main cast, because he just exists to say insane things, and he doesn't even do that very often. There are actually like a lot of times where it feels like the character is going to say something and he doesn't, because he can't see his face, but the actor is kind of motioning like he's saying something and he just doesn't. And it's very, very strange. I mean, the choice to include Krieg at all is very strange, because there is another kind of similar character in the games that could have played the role of Tina's protector, but also someone who enables her behavior and is still kind of batshit themselves. And that they also would have been able to have real dialogue in the movie, and potentially could have even had a character arc. And that's Brick, if you didn't know what I was putting down. I'm probably showing it on the screen. Like, I won't go super into detail about every character, because it'll actually just make me sad. And I'm not someone who holds Borderlands as like a game with super high reverence. Look, the games are fine. So what else? We got Kevin Hart as Roland. This character was awful for every reason that everyone thought it was going to be when they saw the castings. I don't have much to say about him. He wasn't really a character. Speaking of not much of a character, the main villain is super one note and had zero charisma. The Borderlands games are very hit or miss with their villains, but the movie misses harder than the game's biggest misses. The villain in this movie, Atlas, I don't remember his first name, I'm not gonna look it up because I don't give a shit. His goals were just generic, but the biggest crime of all is that he just wasn't entertaining. Who else? Cate Blanchett as Lilith. I know I said I wasn't going to go super into detail, but I'm doing it anyway. Cate Blanchett as Lilith almost works. Obviously, there's the whole age up problem. I think with some better writing, they definitely could have made it work. I don't know if it would have ever been great, but they could have made it work at the very least. But the writing felt like it was done by AI. Nobody looks good in this movie. I know it is super played out to call bad writing, like written by AI, but this movie actually felt like it was written by AI. Like, the dialogue in Borderlands was especially terrible because every character spoke in exposition focused towards the plot. Like, you know how AI doesn't do emotions very well? AI can understand emotions to a point, but the only way that it kind of knows how to convey emotions is with direct dialogue. So instead of seeing a character that is obviously sad about something or conflicted, they have to just say it out loud. Nothing is left to subtlety. Like, everything has to be said aloud, including things that people can just infer from paying the barest amount of attention to the movie. Because, like, watching this whole movie is just characters just saying what they're going to do and saying why they're upset. And there's no subtlety and everybody sucks. And this kind of leads into the scene that, like, it truly broke me, like, while I was watching this movie. And that's the flashback scene. Like, throughout the movie, there is mention that the only person who can open the vault is a child of Iridia, or true child of Pandora or some shit. Everyone thinks this is Tina because she's a clone made with the blood of an Iridian, which is some long thought to be extinct race of aliens. But the movie tries to subtly hint that it is Lilith. And I say that the movie tries to be subtle, in quotes, because it is as subtle as someone trying to cough to hide a fart.
What the fuck, dude?
So, like, when Lilith finally catches up to the fact that it is indeed her and not Tina, it is about 40 minutes after the audience has figured it out. Then the movie has the goal, the absolute cojones, to show us a montage of flashback scenes, showing us every hint they dropped throughout the movie, like it thinks it's Fight Club or some shit. I felt like the movie was just treating me like I was an absolute moron. And you know what, maybe I am, because I decided to go watch this fucking movie. And look, the movie is just kind of riddled with so many little problems all over the place. When I got out of the cinema, I just started writing them down on my phone. And I'm sure I could have found something wrong with either the directing, the writing, or acting or CGI in every scene in the movie, but I'm gonna go through the ones that I remember. It'd be interesting to go through the entire movie, but I respect myself too much to watch this movie again. So there was this scene with Tiny Tina where she was throwing explosive rabbits at Lilith. Tina was standing on top of this huge digger thing and Lilith was on the ground, and the camera would be focused on Tina where she would like kind of underarm throw the rabbits down, and the scene would like cut to a close-up of Lilith running away, and the rabbits were like coming down at terminal velocity like she was being shot at by missiles. It was hilarious. It was really funny. What else? Psycho's barely in the movie and barely established as a faction, which I think I've talked about a bit before with Krieg. It wasn't too long before the movie establishes a second group of what the characters, describe to us as quote-unquote worse psychos, which is hilarious because I don't think that there were more than a handful of normal psychos in the movie. There was another weird thing where Lilith finds out that the normal psychos are working with the Crimson Lance, which is, another faction like the military of Atlas, and mentions how weird it is that they're working together, which again means nothing to anyone because psychos are just barely established. Look, this might mean something to people who play the game, but it means nothing to the people who haven't. There was a scene in Moxie's bar that had a can of Axe body spray in full frame, in full focus, on the bar. Was this product placement? Was it a mistake? Was it an attempt to bring in some viral media attention to get people talking about it, like the Game of Thrones Starbucks cup? I don't know. Whatever the answer is, I hate it. I don't know why it's here. It pissed me off. So moving on, the action in the movie, the action is not great. It was barely serviceable, but everything was really slow. The camera work was wrong. It was emphasizing the wrong things. Nothing had any impact. That was the main problem. Part of the lack of impact is the lack of any blood or gore in this movie. I've seen a lot of people saying that the movie should be R-rated. Yeah, probably. I'd be surprised if there was a single drop of blood in the whole movie, because I don't remember seeing anything. There was one fun moment when Lilith got tackled into the side of a crate and then she popped out of the top of it and started shooting people. I thought that was kind of fun, but it wasn't really shot correctly and the timing was off. Also, it was the only time that the action strayed away from just the generic shooting and punching. I felt like if there were more moments where the action was just more fun and frenetic, then I could probably excuse some of the other shortcomings of this movie has. But it was slow, the cuts happened in weird spots. The execution in general was just wrong. I would argue that the action might have been the best part of the movie, but it isn't even that good, and I don't think it's worth watching just for that. Moving on to my next I wrote down, and I quote, "They Kevin Harted it." I don't remember what this note was referenced to. Let's just move on to the sound design, and more specifically the guns. Each gun pretty much sounded exactly the same. I mean, in the games, the guns do have more distinct sounds, but I think sound design is also lacking in the games. But in the movies, it is much worse, because there are pistols and rifles and they're all being shot and they sound exactly the same. Sound design, bland. That's all I can really say for it. I will give the movie props for the set design. Sometimes it did capture the feeling of Pandora, and that's by looking like a shithole mixed with a landfill, which is pretty easy to get right. The CGI wasn't always awful. There were some neat things here and there, but a lot of the time it did look very cheap, especially when it came to vehicles or any vehicles in motion. There was a lot of motion blur and it looked really especially with this one scene early in the movie where Lilith was driving one of the classic cars from the first game. It was easily the worst looking shot of the movie. Where she was pulling up to the digger, the car kind of sweeps along and you could tell the car is CGI just from looking at it. Her depth of character or her sense of scale wasn't moving with the car correctly, because you could instantly tell it was just it set off that thing, that uncanny valley thing in your brain where you're this thing that I'm looking at, it really isn't real. But if we want to look at something that does look good in the movie, I thought Claptrap looked really good. Unfortunately, Jack Black couldn't save this character from being the worst thing ever in this movie. The writing really did him dirty. Like I said, the writing doesn't do anyone any favors, and the Claptrap as a character suffers the most from the bad writing. I also find it kind of ironic that Jack Black probably got paid $1 million to voice this character when the original voice actor for the games quit voicing Claptrap because he allegedly wasn't getting paid enough. That's very interesting. So what else? There was this character called KNOX in the movie. Once again, if you're a fan of the games, then you know who Commander KNOX is. But this isn't anything close to a representation of the character in the game. I was almost not going to mention her if her character didn't literally embody everything wrong with this movie. KNOX in the games was a gruff, old, depressed man, and because of nepotism, he was commanded by a literal toddler, and he's just like this depressed guy who doesn't even really care about fighting you, and it's really funny.
I'm not sure if I've offended you in some previous life and you're exacting revenge by watching me unravel its seams. I received your sit rep written with magic marker on the back of a cupcake. It reads, "Cats are cool." And you misspelled cool.
KNOX in the movie, though, has none of these traits, or a single resemblance to the source character other than the name Commander KNOX. And it's bad enough that that's like already a thing, but her character like has no personality or real role in the story other than to be a light love interest to Roland. And I mean light, but like these characters share maybe one scene, 2 scenes in the movie, and I don't even know if they speak a line to each other, maybe one. That brings me back to like, why even call this character KNOX other than to be a recognizable name to people familiar with the game? But anyone familiar with the source material is going to be pissed at this change. I'm not sure if I read or heard this somewhere that the KNOX in this movie might be Commander KNOX's daughter, but that means nothing to me if you don't mention or make reference to her father anywhere in the story. Look, this movie is never going to get a sequel, so who gives a shit if you're going to use the real Commander KNOX in the future? Like, this movie was never going to make money. Look, this kind of just brings me back to my point that this is a movie for no one. Like, fans of the games will hate what they did with Commander KNOX, and general audiences don't care because the character was just more or less a cardboard cutout that did nothing. And I should emphasize that I do not blame any of the actors for what this movie ended up being. This was not their fault. I place blame squarely on the writing and directing. If your character was only written as one-dimensional, then as an actor, then you can only really work within that space. I wrote quote-unquote in conclusion in my script here, but I don't think that this needs wrapping up, really. Like, I usually would try and find what kind of audience would like this movie, but I don't recommend this movie to anyone because it sucks. I'm just going to use this time instead to apologize to my friends that I roped into coming along to this movie with me. So, like, I know I warned you guys beforehand that the movie might be shit, but that doesn't feel like it's enough. So, Chris, Stuart, Shani, Ash, Louise, Jack, and Caleb, I am so sorry. This was totally my fault. Like, this is my bad. But I'm not refunding the $20 you sent me to buy the tickets. Actually, you know what? I just remembered something that the movie got right about the game. And that was that the vault was extremely underwhelming. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked the video, please leave it a like. And if you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you watched the Borderlands movie, I am sorry. But let me know what you thought in the comments. Thanks to my YouTube members, Controlled Killer, Dr. Whovian 2, and Yellow. If you think my content is worth supporting via a YouTube membership, then the option is also there. Thank you so much for watching. Stay the hell away from this movie, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.